Okay, let's talk about this Ukraine-Russia war update. But here's the thing, I'm not here to just recap headlines. I want to dive into what's really going on beneath the surface, because the implications here are way bigger than most people realize. Let's start with the most shocking detail from the past 24 hours. A drone loaded with explosives was found at Leipzig airport, right next to a Ukrainian cargo plane carrying military ammunition. If that bomb had detonated, we'd be looking at a catastrophe. But what's fascinating to me is how this fits into a larger pattern. German officials are pointing fingers at Russia, calling it a hybrid attack, which is spy talk, for we know they're behind it, but we can't prove it. Why does this matter? Because this isn't just about drones or airports. It's about how the war is evolving into something messier, darker, and way harder to control. And here's the kicker, this might be exactly what Putin wants. Now let's zoom out. US intelligence is warning that Putin could test NATO's resolve with a limited attack on a member state within a few years. Cyber attacks, sabotage, even a small ground invasion. But not a full-scale war. At first glance, this sounds like doomsday speculation. But here's my take, Putin isn't stupid. He knows a direct NATO war would be suicide. But a limited attack? That's a gray zone, perfect for exploiting divisions. Think about it, if Russia stages a false flag in the Baltics, like Lithuania fears, would NATO respond? Or would the alliance fracture under the pressure? That's the real test here. It's not about territory. It's about whether countries like Hungary or Germany would actually risk World War III for a small ally. And honestly, I'm not sure the answer is yes. Meanwhile, Ukraine's hitting back. They just struck Russian oil refineries over 1,300 kilometers away. That's not symbolic, it's strategic. Knocking out refineries cripples Russia's energy revenue, which funds the war. But here's the twist. Ukraine's doing this while fighting a defensive war. They're stretched thin, yet they're launching long-range attacks. Does this mean they're getting more aggressive? Or is this a sign of desperation? In my opinion, it's both. Kyiv knows the West's attention span is short, so they're proving they can still punch above their weight. But it's a gamble. Every drone they send deep into Russia is one less to defend their own cities. And those cities? Kyiv just held a day of mourning after 17 civilians died in a Russian missile strike. The UN's calling out both sides for attacking civilians, which is technically accurate. But let's not pretend it's a moral equivalence. Ukraine's targeting infrastructure, railroads, ammo depots, while Russia is bombarding apartment blocks. The difference matters. Still, this war is blurring lines. When you call a power plant a dual-use target, you're basically giving yourself permission to bomb anything. And that's terrifying because it sets a precedent for future conflicts. Imagine if every war zone becomes a free-for-all where hospitals and schools are fair game. That's the Pandora's box Russia's opening here. Oh, and remember that logistics hub Wildberries lost to a fire? That's the second one Ukraine's hit in 2 days. Now, Wildberries is just a Russian Amazon, right? But here's the deeper layer. These attacks show Ukraine's ability to strike deep behind enemy lines. Putin's homeland isn't safe anymore. And that's a psychological blow. Russians might have been able to ignore the war before, but when their packages get delayed because a warehouse is burning, suddenly it's personal. That's the point, make the war impossible to ignore, even in Moscow's suburbs. Finally, Zelensky's heading to Serbia for his first visit since 2019. Why Serbia? Because Belgrade's one of the last European capitals still on decent terms with Moscow. Ukraine's trying to flip that script. But here's the irony. Zelensky's asking Serbia to pick a side while his own country is dependent on Western weapons. It's like a chess move to isolate Russia further. But will it work? Serbia's got its own complicated history with NATO. This visit is as much about symbolism as substance. Still, in a war where perception matters, every diplomatic inch counts. So where does this leave us? The war's entering a phase where hybrid tactics, economic sabotage, and psychological warfare matter as much as tanks. Putin's testing NATO's limits without crossing into direct conflict. Ukraine's fighting to survive while reshaping global alliances. And the rest of the world? We're all just trying to figure out if this is the new normal. One thing's clear: the rules of war and peace are changing. And that's what makes this so terrifying to watch unfold.